Games.
Okay, here we go.
All right, here we are.
This is VCED. This is Video Conversation Essay Discussion.
Video conversation, essay discussion.
We're never changing that title.
Can't. Absolutely can't.
When I was editing the first VCED, I was like, I think I texted you and I was like, what does VCED stand for? And only in the last 30 seconds.
Did we say it?
Because we had some other name for it, like, God, what was it? It was like, no technical conversation. I don't know.
A proper title.
Yeah. NTC. So today's topic, as chosen by the viewers, thanks, Mom, is...
Is that real?
No. So we decided, right now in the midst, perhaps towards the end, of Freedom Fighters, classic in the top 10 video games. There's like Mario, Zelda, Freedom Fighters.
It's part of many conversations.
Right. Everybody talks about it. Everybody loves it. It's a beloved franchise. But importantly, it was also hard to get a hold of until 2019 or 2020 when they put it on Steam.
Like
so we were kind of thinking like, there's a lot of angles we can take the Freedom Fighters VCED. But B had the idea of just making it about game preservation, which I thought was great.
Which is also weirdly relevant to the next couple of games
yes.
we'll be playing.
Well, also, not just the games that you're gonna see, maybe not one of the games, but the two after that, maybe. But today's also a special day for game preservation. Because today is the day that the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U eShops are closing down. And there's some games on there that are like exclusives. Shoutouts to Attack of the Friday Monsters and Liberation Maiden. And
it's also the same week Pokemon ended.
And also, yes, Ash Ketchum is dead. He was shot in cold blood by Pikachu. I think that's what happened.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
He's gonna come back as an old dude.
Yeah,
they're gonna be like, there's gonna be like a 3-episode build up, and they're gonna be like, there's a legendary trainer you gotta meet, and the new character's gonna be like, whoa, gosh, who's that? It's gonna be Ash. There's no way. There's no way.
Like Red. And showing up at the end of Pokemon Gold Silver.
Right, exactly. You know, it's funny. My niece said the exact same thing yesterday. Oh, like Red. We all remember that boss fight.
Well, game preservation, also for in particular you, has been like a big thing that you've been speaking about for years.
Well, it's something that concerns me. And because, I guess it stems from kind of my sad decision not a long time ago, actually, now at this point, like 5+ years, to offload my Nintendo 64 collection, which was probably I didn't have all the games, but I had games that are like hard to get, like Snowboard Kids, Beetle Adventure Racing, stuff that I haven't seen other people talk about or really like have access to, and definitely not stuff that's like on an eShop or like on Steam or on one of these easy to access websites. So, and I can't just pay $8 and download it. And also, like, I guess, in the Freedom Fighters conversation, that was a game where, like, I have the disc of Freedom Fighters. It's in a folder somewhere in one of my closets. And, my computer slowly did not have a disc drive. Like, gradually, my laptop didn't have one, and now my desktop doesn't. So I was like, well, I guess I'm never going to play Freedom Fighters. And they slap it on Steam. I guess I could have gotten a USB disc drive. But the point is, like, the like keeping it kind of in the gaming conversation by releasing it on like a big platform like Steam is like, that's a good way to keep it going. That's why people still play Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. That's why people still play
absolutely.
Stalkers, Shadow of Chernobyl, like these games that are like cool that you can talk about.
And that are seeing because of YouTube and Twitch and stuff, are seeing like huge resurgences of
which is what we're hoping to do with Freedom Fighters.
Yep, that was the
IO, please. We've done it. We've shown the world the greatness of Freedom Fighters.
4 views per video. Freedom Fighters sequel coming.
Listen, that's probably more people than we're talking about Freedom Fighters at the beginning of 2023.
True.
4 more people. Well, 3 more if you don't count me. So anyway, okay, so I have a kind of a thought about how we're going to do this, and you'll see on our screen. I mean, you won't see it because I'm going to edit it out and put a cool picture or something on there, maybe some footage or something. But my thought was like, okay, like, kind of alongside my thoughts about it, like B constantly brings up the game Folklore on PlayStation, which is one of those games.
And Eternal Sonata.
And Eternal Sonata, and like the Eternal Sonata, was that a pre-trophy?
It was pretty. I think so, but it was originally an Xbox exclusive that like a year later was released on PS3.
And it's not on PC or anything like that.
Not on anything.
Yeah. So like those two games.
Well, I mean, we'll get into, but it's weird. Something about that is very weird. Speaking of like 2022, 2023 stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because everything should be available. But like Folklore in particular is like one of these games that like I wanted to play, and the only way I can do is with the PS3, and I no longer have my PS3, and it should just be on there. Another example of a game like that until recently was like Crisis Core or Birth by Sleep. These games that were like only on PSP like disc, not on this PlayStation Store. Anyway, the point is, thinking about all this stuff, thinking about all these games we love that we can't have access to anymore for one reason or another. I kind of thought like, okay, there's kind of three ways, right, to break down this like game preservation idea not for like, I don't know, like museum preservation or something like that, but more just for like the normal person, right? There's like keep your old hardware and or slap it onto like a store and kind of just have the original version of the game, right? That's like one way to do it. Sometimes they like Goggle make like a 1080p version of the game. So version 1.0 is like, I guess, like light remaster re-release. Version 2 is like full on remaster. So this is like, I don't know, like Warcraft 3 Reforged, which we're going to talk about later. The GTA remasters. I'm purposely talking about bad ones.
Last of Us remastered,
which didn't need a remaster, but
Last
anyway.
of Us
Remastered. PS5 remastered. Or like Dead Space, Resident Evil 4, which just came out. Like these like big sort of like we're making it a new game basically. And then I guess version 3 is just like kind of the old like it's not available anywhere. Like you need to emulate it. Which we're going to talk about a game that like that's kind of in rights limbo right now. That's like I think it's like freeware. I think you can just download it. Well, you know, should you download it? We won't. We don't endorse that kind of thing. But
of course not.
but you know, essentially like emulating a game, right? Essentially like within the gray area confines of legality, emulating a game like you just can't get
Maybe
anywhere
we should
else.
explain what emulate means.
We should. Instead of having your okay, you're a gamer. You had a Nintendo 64, but now you don't have the box anymore. Well, how do I play? Gee, Daniel, how do I play my N64 games? Well, a fancy thing called an emulator is a program that tricks your computer into acting like the Nintendo 64 or the PlayStation or whatever. And then you have images of the cartridge or the disc or whatever, and you can play it on your computer. And you can plug in an Xbox controller or whatever other controller and just play the game. Yeah. And it's like the conversation for many, many years has been this kind of legal gray area with emulation. Like, are you there are some bright lines, right? Like, obviously, if you don't own the game, you probably shouldn't be. You're essentially just pirating it if you're downloading it for free. There's also discussions around like the actual emulator itself. Like I know, for instance, on the PlayStation emulator, the PlayStation uses like a I forget what it's called specifically, like the BIOS, PlayStation BIOS.
Oh yeah.
You can download the emulator, but you got to get the BIOS from somewhere, parts unknown.
Really?
Yeah, and no one will link it to you unless now it's probably impossible.
Unless they know you don't work for Sony.
Yeah, basically, unless you use Kazaa. Shoutouts to Kazaa. So yeah, there's like all tons of weird stuff with emulation. Most people, I mean, nowadays I think older folks or like people kind of my age and older are really into just owning the original hardware, which is why owning original hardware is so freaking expensive now.
Yeah.
And it's why like weird 3DS games and like weird like stuff that like I would say is still kind of new is just more expensive because people are just into collecting new in box stuff. But anyway,
well, I think a good place to start possibly on that in that vein of the descriptions of stuff is maybe talk about why it's different from like museum preservation. And I think just for me, the big difference is when games are preserved, or even anything like movies, they get put into these archives and stuff
behind glass.
Nobody's ever intended to play them.
Right.
They're not right. They're not meant for not even private use, but public use.
Right. They'll have a cartridge. I mean, I don't know this. I'm just imagining. I mean, there are a couple of video game museums that are doing. Video Game History Foundation is one that does good work, and they actually have playable arcades. But yeah, I think it's not like, oh, don't touch this Mario cartridge.
Mhm.
You know, it's graded this like crazy high amount. It's like worth $1 gajillion and selling for all this money. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this is more just like, how can I I guess it's less about keeping a cartridge in good condition or something like that, and it's more about like, I just want to play Metal Gear Solid 1, the original version, or the Twin Snakes. Foreshadowing. And I just want to play it. I just want to have a good time, and I don't want to think about it. And sometimes you'll have to emulate it yourself, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you'll have to download that shady PlayStation BIOS somewhere, or that N64 thing or whatever.
Sometimes you don't want to have to go into the middle of the woods and find a floppy disk that plays the game that you want to play.
I don't want to get shot by company representatives, so
Yeah.
that's a huge spoiler. They're not going to see that yet. But sometimes the big companies will do it for you, right? Like, I mean, they'll sell it to you for $8 a pop. But like, I think I want to like shout out Microsoft, for instance, with the original Xbox games on the Xbox Series S and X. Like,
Mm-hmm.
those are emulates. You're emulating the game. It's like simple as that. Or even the eShop stuff to some extent is emulation. Although sometimes on the like, sometimes they'll add like save states or like other weird things, which is going above and beyond a step forward. But the Xbox stuff is really just like, hey, we're just giving it to you like you're playing an original Xbox. There's no, maybe it's a little sharper, but other than that, it's you know, as you remember it.
Yeah. Well, sort of in the same vein, sort of. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say shout out to Otogi, Myth of Demons, which I'm gonna put some footage of that game in here somewhere.
It's a company that has been doing it sort of well over the years on their most popular games. I would say also Square Enix.
Sometimes they don't do it well, though.
Sometimes they don't do it.
Have you seen those iPad versions of Final Fantasy 1 through 6?
But I mean, but at the same time, like they are, I'd say, one of the few companies that is still. I mean, it took them forever to get around to it. I remember I want to say, decade and a half of people asking for them to remake Final Fantasy VII or just put it somewhere else.
Weren't they always trying to remake that game though? Wasn't it always like in the conversation?
Yeah, well, it was always like people saying you should make a new remake Final Fantasy VII. But I feel like it wasn't until the PlayStation 3's store that they were like, you know what? Let's just re-release Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. Which I had that on my PlayStation 3/Vita and enjoyed it very much. And there's like a re-release now on PS4 that has like fast motion and all this other crap, and then turn off encounters, which, you know, that's when you get the legit companies doing it. Sometimes they'll add good features like that. But also Square Enix has been in the re-release game. Well, Squaresoft and then later Square Enix for a long time. Like on PS1, they had Final Fantasy 1 and 2.
And they released it for the PSP.
And they made cutscenes. They made like 3D, nice, fancy, schmancy cutscenes. Or Chrono Cross. Not Chrono Cross.
It was like a full 3D version of Final Fantasy 4.
Yeah, on the DS. Yeah,
DS,
which is a good version of that game. Or Chrono Trigger, the PlayStation 1 version of Chrono Trigger had like anime cutscenes in it that weren't in the Super Nintendo version that are now in the PC version.
Wow.
So they've always been like kind of doing that thing. I mean, okay, the cynical person will say they're reselling you the same freaking game. Which, you know, I've been a victim of buying. I mean, I owned many copies of Freedom Fighters. I own Freedom Fighters on GOG and Steam.
I mean, I've bought Final Fantasy X, not a million times, but 3 times. Yeah.
What system did you buy it on?
PS2 twice.
Nice.
And,
for each PS2.
And for
each PS.
And PS3. And I've been fighting the urge, but I'm probably going to cave and get it for PS4, and then
the 1010 HD remaster.
And then a week later, they're going to announce a PS5 version.
Yeah, they're going to be like, this one has like, does the PS4? They also did the turn off encounters and the fast motion and all that stuff. They did that with Zodiac Age, Final Fantasy 12.
So, but I don't even remember.
They do that with all their recent games, but
the Zodiac Age looks amazing.
Yeah. So since I guess
we should talk about.
Well, let's jump into this. Because we're talking about good remasters and ways to remaster a game. Let's have that be the first. I want to talk about that shit, and I want to take you on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, there is a video game that I love very much. I think I was 14 when this game came out, and that game is Warcraft 3: Reign of Chaos, and its expansion pack Warcraft 3: The Frozen Throne. Click on that. Yeah, right there. So we're going to go through these slowly. So Warcraft 3, probably one of my favorite strategy games of all time. I don't think people like it as much. I mean, everyone cares about WoW. Everyone cares about like the latter years of Warcraft, and then Warcraft 3 really is just a vehicle for Dota. I mean, that's why people remember it now.
Yeah. You mean the League of Legends? Oh my god.
Ripoff? Yes. So I'll say as a little bit of context.
I'm gonna pause.
This came out. No, it's okay. I'll lower it. We have sound control. This came on the disc for StarCraft Brood War. This trailer.
Really?
Yeah.
All these games look the same.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling right now watching this?
This is very nostalgic. I feel like I remember watching this trailer.
So this is coming off of Warcraft 1 and 2, right? Where orcs and humans were the two baddies. They were fighting across 2 games, big wars. And they're fighting in this one, and you're like, oh, wow. This is
literally.
I know these people. I know what's going on here. That's a footman and a grunt. Zug zug. And then this shit happens. And then this shit happens.
This is a whole nother conversation that we're not even going to get into, is just how amazing game trailers used to be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you're in for a treat. I saw this as a child, and I was like, what is this? What is this? This is not an orc. What is this?
Wow. Is that the...
And wait, and then it ends. They're both dead, bro. They're both dead, bro. They're both dead, and their blood is mixing because it doesn't matter anymore.
What? This is like the final... Or not the final... What are one of the final chapters of Naruto.
Oh.
They're making a third one?
Hype, right? Crazy. I think that's a
great trailer.
Okay. Fast forward like a decade plus.
Okay.
And this is like, they have BlizzCon every year, right? This is like, I want to say this was like 2017, 18. They'll tell you in the trailer. Click on that first video, on that first one on the left.
I also remember this. I don't remember if I watched this when it came out, but I remember. Did I? I do remember this trailer or announcing this.
So I saw this and I was like, "Oh my god, I know what this is."
Yeah,
this is in my brain. Now I want to direct you to some features.
Oh yeah, the armor is.
It's more beautiful, right?
It is way more beautiful.
It's way more beautiful.
Not just because of the general video resolution, but yeah.
This is a trailer for Warcraft 3 Reforged, the remaster of Warcraft 3. Now,
it's so great. It's so great how much of the original like aspect stuff they just kept in it.
Yeah. Yeah. You would think it implies a respect for the original game.
You would think that.
You would interpret that as like, oh, they're doing a shot-for-shot remake of the original trailer. They want us to feel the same way, right?
I would think that, yeah.
Which we all did. Well, I don't know. I won't speak for the entire planet, but I will speak for myself and all the weirdos that live inside of my brain. The gnomes that play Warcraft 3, that think about strategy games all day. What I got from this trailer is they're taking Warcraft 3 and they're going to make it crazy.
Yeah.
And the press around this trailer and this game was
great.
Was that. It was like, we're going to ground up, we're going to redo Warcraft 3. It's going to be better than you remembered it. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And they fucked it up big time. Now, to be fair, and not to be fair in the sense to excuse them, but just to be fair for the sake of history.
Okay.
This was around the time Blizzard started going through their fun sexual harassment stuff that they're still dealing with today.
Oh.
So a lot of staff probably left. 2018. A lot of staff probably left.
I don't know if you blame, yeah.
Or like wasn't, one reason or another, we're not as involved in the project, which I totally understand. I get that. But meanwhile, we were promised this like super duper like awesome remake.
Yeah.
And what I got from this, the implication that I got from this trailer is like you're gonna do everything up. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
What we got instead was
Yeah.
like more high res textures and whatever.
Yeah. This is.
So like stuff like this. The implication was that this is going to be like a cutscene, or it's going to look better, or it's going to be animated in some different way.
Absolutely.
And it's just an up-res version of.
This looks shit.
Yeah, it's just an up-res version of how it was originally like shot in the game, if you will.
They just gave it a. They just up-resed it. Gave it a. I wouldn't even say a fresh coat of paint. They just gave it a coat of paint.
I mean, there's new textures. Like, I'm not going to say that it looks like.
I mean,
it did nothing.
It doesn't look like. It doesn't look like one of the largest video game studios in the world.
Yeah.
Worked on it.
I mean,
I feel like that's sort of what you expect from like a remaster.
Yeah.
Is for the game to be re-released and look like it could have come out in this generation. There are a million indie games today that look better than this.
Yeah, yeah. And granted, yes, they are aping the Warcraft 3 style, right? Some of them are this like saturated, colorful look.
Yeah.
But, you know, not this. It's not apparent in this, but like this Warcraft 3 Reforged also introduced like a ton of bugs. It, like when it came out, it was like crashing all the time. I even had a hard time getting it to run when I was recording it. This was earlier today that I was playing it. It's like slow. Like the mouse feels so sluggish, even though I'm trying to adjust it and move it around and stuff. And like, you know, I have a gamer mouse. You know, it's supposed to compensate for this kind of stuff. It just feels like the same thing. And I already had Warcraft 3 original available on my Battle.net account. I mean, I could just go and play it, which is what I do when I want to play Warcraft 3. I don't play this version that I spent money on.
Do you think? So we both read Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, right? With Jason Schreier.
Yes.
Where he was talking about Diablo and Diablo 3's development. Do you think this was made by a company afraid to make changes?
No, I think this came from a company that was just like, hey, all that shit we said we were gonna do, we can't do it. So let's just do this. This is feasible, which I understand. But I don't know. It's just for such a seminal, important game. It was just so like, I would have rather waited 2 years and gotten something like really amazing.
Have they done like remasters for Warcraft 1 or 2?
No. Those are available on GOG, but there's no like up.
But so this is the one they chose. This is the one they chose to remaster, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, technically, Warcraft 2 got the Battle.net edition. Which added multiplayer in like, I don't know, what was that, 1998 or something. So yes. But what's most disappointing about this too is like, even the cutscenes, like the actual cutscenes that they did in the original game are just in this. They didn't even change them. They didn't dress them up the way they dressed up that trailer that you saw.
Yeah.
Before we start. So it's sort of like, I mean, okay, I guess I'm being a little bit of a ragey gamer with this, but I'm like, y'all got to do something. Like, at least don't make it worse, which they made it by making it so like janky and making the multiplayer not work and making it so buggy. It just
what can I ask
sucked.
Is at the time this comes out, because if anybody hasn't noticed, I don't particularly care about Warcraft.
What?
That's only half true. I love the lore. I love reading lore, so I love the lore. I don't care about the game. But Warcraft 3, the original, is available on something.
Yeah, you can get it on Battle.net. You can buy it.
So
I also have the discs.
Is this? And I'm assuming this is way more expensive.
Yeah, I think it's like $20 versus $40 or $50 or whatever.
So would you say like there was any added value?
No, none whatsoever.
So I guess would you say from this? Because I think one of the things about remasters or remakes is that you are making something new for the people that have played it before, making them excited about it again. But you're also creating a product that people that never played it and maybe younger or too young to have ever played it when it first came out would be interested in playing it.
Right.
And yeah, this just looks like they didn't do didn't attempt to do
There's
either.
no reason for it. This is not Chrono Cross Radical Dreamers where they're like, there's no way to play this game. Let's just remaster it so that people can just have access to it. You know, it's not that. This is like, oh, we wanted to take Warcraft 3 and like represent it in this big way and charge more money for it.
Wow.
And instead they're just like, no, just kidding. Like, let's go back to the old one or whatever.
I mean, even that
animation is new, so...
Oh, so there's new animation, so that's nice.
Yeah, a new animation. And now I want to just for a sec look at this cutscene. Look at this. Remastered. Up-res.
Wow.
So that's I guess prong one of this analysis, which is remastering a game and doing a bad job as opposed to doing a good job.
I was gonna say with like Final Fantasy X, and I think 10 too, they didn't have a lot of the source code, and so they rebuilt the game. It is effectively the exact same game. It does just look prettier. They do add a couple of things here and there. I mean, all of the additions are
like the speed up stuff and then turn off encounters. And...
every version is the European version, which was like had more content. Had a whole slew of super bosses. And in like the community, the big discussion is, do a couple of the faces look better in the original because of the engine they were using?
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
And that's it.
Who cares?
Yeah. But you also have like Dark Souls versus Dark Souls Remastered, where Dark Souls Remastered is like a fresh coat of paint on the graphics, and you can now pop multiple souls at a time instead of one at a time.
Yeah, little things like that.
And it's like, oh, so you okay, sure, you remade it. Also, or you remastered it. You also made at least some improvements that wasn't graphical somewhere.
Right. Or how about Scholar of the First Sin for Dark Souls 2, which adds lore.
Yeah.
And that's Aldia talking about all that stuff. Like, that's cool. I like that. Or Shadow of the Colossus, the PS4 version, where they added like a whole new set of collectibles. Yeah. That's...
Or the Nintendo, or the Zelda Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time remasters, which just make it look pretty in 3D.
Yeah, but also they do a very key. There's a key quality of life improvement. The
controls are ways. Oh yeah, I mean, there's
they make the Iron Boots a C item.
Yeah.
Just do that. Just make the Iron Boots a C item. Warcraft Remastered, Reforged Edition. Anyway, so yeah, remasters, middle of the ground. I don't know. Take each one with a grain of salt.
I think at the very least, a remaster, at the very least, should be less about improving the graphics and more about quality of life improvements.
Yep.
To gameplay.
Yeah.
If only to not just match common norms, but to clear up things that would have been done differently had the games have come out today, or what they probably wish they would have had more time to do before.
Yeah. I'm sure the original devs were like, oh man, we did that because we were crunching and we needed to get it done. Boy, I wish we could do it differently. Well, now you can. Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to minimize how difficult it might be to add like new content. But still, I mean, if you're going to make me pay for it over again, and you know I will, do something cool. Or you can do what our next category of games does, which is just make a hard to find game easier to find. Just post that shit on Steam and just call it a day. One of those games is Freedom Fighters.
What?
Freedom Fighters just did that, and it's great. No problems whatsoever. But there's like a ton of games on, especially GOG is like, we talk about CD Projekt Red a lot on this channel. But
yeah, I mean, it wasn't until like a couple of months ago that I realized CD Projekt Red created GOG.
Yep. Watch that good documentary on NoClip about that stuff. Anyway, B, could you please click on the next?
On the next thing?
MajestyGameplay.mkv.
Yeah. What is MKV?
I don't know. Oh. It's a video file. So, category number 2. Just put that shit on GOG. That's what I'm calling it.
Oof. What happened to that?
This is a game that I loved as a child. I absolutely love this game. It's called Majesty. The point of Majesty is that you're the king of the realm, and you build buildings, and you recruit heroes, and the heroes are controlled by the computer. And the heroes go around and they do their own thing. You don't tell them to do anything unless you put a bounty on stuff, and then they're like, "Cool, I want 5,000 gold."
Oh, that's really cool.
So I'm gonna just or explore stuff or whatever. I'll do that for gold, but also I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna go to the inn. You can upgrade your inns, and they heal more. You can have markets sell potions. This is like the tutorial mission, so it's not particularly complicated. But I love it. I love it when GOG just makes stuff work on Windows 10.
Yeah, this was originally a PC game, though, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is a PC game, so it's easier in that sense, right? You don't have to worry about necessarily porting between consoles or anything. It's more like, getting some of these older games like the original Fallout, which is also on there, which I only played because of GOG because I missed it at the time. God, so many games, like weird stuff, like Battle Realms. You know what Battle Realms is?
I have heard of Battle Realms.
It's like a RTS that takes it's like fictional, like Japanese stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that we're talking about it. The thing that makes all of this possible, right, is that it is PC.
Well, this on the screen right now is me. I'm the king of the realm.
Yeah,
I made this possible.
It's true. But yeah, that the system architecture is simple to adapt to the current, simple relatively to current computers because they are like, I don't know, apples and oranges.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that consoles are structured in the same way. I guess PS4 to PS5, Xbox One to Xbox Series.
Yeah, well, because they're being made now to do that.
Right. But like, even Switch stuff, like going back to kind of what we talked about, just put that stuff on the eShop, or put that stuff on a digital storefront as it was. Like the Wii U eShop was probably the best iteration of the eShop. They had Game Boy Advance games, they had 64 games. They had I think they had Game Boy Color, they had Game Gear, they had TurboGrafx, Sega Genesis, and obviously you could play original Wii games on your Wii U. And
the reason the Wii U eShop was so great because there was nothing to play on the Wii U.
Exactly, it was desperation, and it was clear Nintendo was just like, let's just throw whatever we can on there. But like, I'm not gonna play Advance Wars 2 on my TV, Nintendo. Unless you remaster it.
I don't know if you remember this when the Xbox 360 was coming out. There was a big thing that they were announcing that it was going to be backwards compatible with, or they were going to have like a storefront, right, for older games like Rare and stuff.
You say the 360?
The 360.
Yeah.
And I said to you, being able to play old games is never going to sell a new system. And it's really funny because that was like the only thing selling the Wii U.
Well, yeah. But is that an exclusively Nintendo phenomenon? Because, like,
I mean, you can argue that the Xbox Series X and stuff are only operating currently on that.
Well, they have that in Game Pass. And definitely, for me, it's a big, big plus. I think you asked me not 2 days ago, what's the point of owning an Xbox? And I said, to play original Xbox games, to play Crimson Sky's High Road to Revenge and Blinks the Time Sweeper and Otogi Myth of Demons.
Yeah.
Those games, I'm glad those games are available. But how much? I guess I'm sure the bean counters over at Microsoft know the answer to these questions. But like,
True.
That's a cool thing to throw at an E3 press conference. Who actually goes back and plays games like that? Like, except for old weirdos. I mean, how often do you go back and play a game you've beaten before?
Not a ton. I'd say the ones that I do play, they're few and far between. But like when I was recording, I was telling you earlier, when I was recording Eternal Sonata and Folklore for this, I was just like, you know what, I had to force myself to stop because I was only recording stuff. I was like, I should just play these games again.
Yeah. When they're good, they're good.
But I'm never going to go, despite that, I'm never going to go out of my way to be like, I'm going to replay this again. And some of it is because of the time sink.
If you didn't have a PS3, and you were like, I really want to play Folklore. Two questions: would you A, go out and get a PS3, or would you be like, oh, PlayStation 6 is gonna have PS3 backwards compatibility? Great, I'm gonna. Or would you pay for the extra service if it had like Folklore on it and you wanted to play Folklore or whatever? You know, the PS Plus Plus, whatever.
Honestly, I'm not sure I would do anything.
You just not play Folklore?
I'd probably just
move on.
I'd probably just see if somebody's played it online and watch that.
History is bunk. Is that what you're saying? Oh, you mean you would go on no technical difficulties to see if they played Folklore?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I would do that too. I would do that every day.
Because I feel like I'd be going out of my way to buy something new, to play something old, and just something about that to me that seems inherently, I don't want to say wrong, but weird.
Sub question then.
Yeah.
Would you justify it by saying, "Oh, I missed out on these great PS3 games"? Maybe.
Like when they started releasing some of the Final Fantasy games on PS3, and it was just straight PS1 versions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went and I bought those.
Yeah.
Like those are games but those were also games that I played before.
Did you buy Final Fantasy 8?
I did not buy Final Fantasy 8.
That
was actually before Final Fantasy 8 was released on it.
Okay, all right. Excuses, lies.
But it was like they're also cheap. Like, I mean, I've been using Steam more.
This was $3. Majesty. This version of Majesty was $3.
I've been using Steam more, and I went and I got the old version, not the remaster, of Alan Wake. I was like, sure, you know what? It's there, and it's super cheap.
Was it cheaper? Was it cheaper than the remaster version?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't like in my face, I might just ignore it. Unless it was remastered.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But like, so I guess because for me, when I see, like, for instance, like, again, I hate to bring up the greatest game of all time again, but Freedom Fighters, like when I see that, like when I saw, for instance, that Majesty was on GOG, I was like, well, I'm gonna play Majesty one day. And I'm glad that it's here and I'm just going to buy it. Because sometimes I take it off the store. You know, there are plenty of games that I wish I did that with. Like the 2009 Wolfenstein, which was on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation 3. I wish I just bought that game to just have it. And because I really, really love that game. And I wish I could play it for this channel. But it's impossible to get unless you basically get a physical disc version on Xbox or PS3. So, like, stuff like this, I'm like, one day it's going to go into rights limbo. Maybe something will happen, you know, and okay, yes, like, it does feel weird just, like, buying something that I've played to death. I mean, I wouldn't say I played Majesty to death, but I played a lot of Majesty as a kid. I bought a disc from Fry's Electronics for $10.
Ooh.
Yeah. But I'm always, like, I think that's why I will forever, like, be a PC. Like, I can get rid of all my consoles, but I'll still keep my gaming PC because I love the idea of being able to play everything that I've ever owned. Basically, I mean, obviously there are some exceptions to that rule. If things are just not compatible or don't work. Looking at you, black and white, which I could not record for this video because it just wasn't working for me. And that's why I get, like, I don't want to call it anxiety because I don't want to sound like a wuss, but, like, I think about, like, for instance, like the Switch 2. Like, are my Switch games going to work with it? Like, I kind of expect that. And I don't know, maybe because I have a collection now, but, like, it's not like I was, like, disappointed that, like, the GameCube had discs and my 64 had cartridges. I was like, oh, I'll just keep my 64. You know, not thinking that, like, one day I won't have room or I won't ever have the console. I'm like, well, of course I'm not going to get rid of my stuff. And
then you do.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah. How am I going to play Body Harvest?
I can see that.
How am I going to play Space Station Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. I mean, I still have both of my PS3s. And, I mean,
B has a 60 gigabyte PS3 fatty, which doesn't work anymore, right?
No, it does. It doesn't work as a PS3. It works as a PS2.
Who bought it for a PS3? You bought it for a PS2 and a PS1. That's the only reason people bought that. All right, since we're talking about remaster, what a stupid fucking idea. Let's release 5 models of PS3. This one only runs PS2 games. This one runs PS1 and PS3 games. This one is only PS3 games. Like, terrible idea.
Well, don't
do it.
I mean, they were trying to make it cheaper.
Yeah.
But still.
But still, just give it to me or don't give it to me at all. Like whatever.
I will say there are exceptions. I guess to me, there are games that I've been like, similarly, I guess with Wolfenstein, where I'm like, I haven't played this before. I intend to at some point in time figure out how I am going to play this older game.
Yeah.
Which is actually how I. But again, this comes to remasters, which is how I played the Metal Gear Solid games, because I didn't have any of them for PS1 or PS2.
But you have that nice collection.
But I went and got the PS3 collection that has
featured on VCED episode 1.
Yeah. Same with what do you call it? Mass Effect, I guess. Or waited until I borrowed it. The first Mass Effect 2 and 3, but I didn't have 1 because that was Xbox exclusive.
Yeah.
And I went and I bought the remaster. The original remaster, and then I bought the legendary remaster. Well, I guess I got the legendary remaster. I was going to buy it, and then it was available for free.
Yeah.
So,
and that's an example where, like, I love Mass Effect 1. I don't really care what they do to it, but it's good that it's just available. You can just buy it, and it's not weirdly living on the 360.
You know what? That talks about what I think was a bad remaster. I think Mass Effect 1 was a bad remaster.
How dare you? It was a bad game, gameplay-wise, to begin with. With a fantastic story. I love the story of Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect 1 is my favorite. I'll fucking die on this hill forever.
You will die on that hill.
I will die alone, but happy. But yeah, I mean, I guess they could have, I guess, again. I will say, I know that there were things that they did change and update. The Mako?
Slightly. They did update some of the maps. Not enough. This one video was like, we updated the map on, I forget one of the planet you go to. It's not Vermeer. I'm forgetting the name of the planet.
Novaria.
They updated the map.
Snowplace?
They updated the map slightly, or a little bit on Novaria. And they're like, haha. And yet somehow every single building you go to on a planet uses one of two just preset looks.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, this is a science building. They plopped the exact same layout science building on every single planet.
That's a holdover efficiency thing from the 360 days. That's got to be.
Oh, yeah. But it's like, this is supposed to be like their big thing. We're overhauling and updating it. And it's like,
then that begs the question, like, who's gonna what do you focus on in a big boy remaster, right? Like, who's gonna care about what's on the science desk as opposed to like new combat or better?
Also, they didn't upgrade. They also didn't update the combat, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. Well, they did. Didn't they change? They made it a little tighter. It's not as.
It's
not as floppy as the original Mass Effect 1. Let me tell you.
They didn't. They got rid of a bunch of I guess increased the accuracy rate, so pretty much all of your shots hit now instead of back in the day, which was frustrating as hell. I don't know. I feel like if you're gonna make, say, this legendary remaster, and you're gonna release Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3, then they should all play. Even if you change menu stuff, because some of the menu stuff was different, because they adjusted their like charisma meter every game.
You don't have to like overdo it the way you did in like in 1. You had to make all the choices, or you didn't have enough.
But like I feel like if you're gonna do that, they should at least all play the same everywhere else.
Yeah.
Like just import.
Right-click save as Mass Effect 1.
Import Mass Effect 3 Shepard into Mass Effects 2 and 1.
Oh, they did a thing where like the beard colors changed between 1 and 2. So my Shepard from 1 to 2 had a mismatched beard to hair color. And I restarted the game.
That's hilarious. That's the big thing they did. Like, I would say, honestly, the big like through line for all of those Mass Effect games was that they used the character generator from Mass Effect 3.
Yeah.
The character generator from Mass Effect 3, and they imported all of those same options into 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And that was their big, This is our through line. So your shepherd's going to look exactly the same for
Yeah.
every single game.
Because 1 to 2, like when I played it,
Yeah.
I think I played it in law school. Yeah, it's like a totally different,
Oh yeah.
completely different system. It's like weird. Like they just use different, I don't know, different colors. Like why would you do that? Probably because you had to. I understand, but anyway,
Anyway, I'm going to close this video.
we should move on.
What else do we have here, Daniel?
Well, just topic 3. Now, topic 1 was easily accessible games that are basically how they were. But now we're going into games that are not as easily accessible. Maybe you need original hardware. Maybe you need to do some chicanery with disc images
Yeah.
to play. That should be on digital storefronts, but for one reason or another are not.
Mm-hmm.
We can start with No One Lives Forever 2. A Spy in Harm's Way. So this game is like, what if we took the Austin Powers level of silliness and then cranked it just like one tick back to serious?
Okay.
Like
Wait,
Kate
what?
Archer is not Austin Powers. Kate Archer, the main character.
Yeah.
She's a good spy. She's cool.
She's not Archer.
She's also not Archer, yes. And the villain is not Dr. Evil, but he kind of is.
Oh. Is he Hattori-san?
No, Hattori-san is one of your boys.
This game looks cool.
So this game is
When
awesome.
what did I completely missed it if you said it. What did this game originally come out on?
PC only. This is a PC only game. This game is like famously in rights hell.
Mm.
I think Fox used to own the rights to the game. Like the 20th Century Fox logo shows up when you start the game up.
Yeah.
And then
That's
like
old.
Sierra owned the rights for a while, or Sierra like published the game also. And it's basically a big mess. And like, I know that the folks
Wow.
at GOG are trying to like put this on their storefront, and they just can't because they're like, we don't know what to do. But if you like, you can just Google this game, and like, I'm not telling you to do it, but let's just say there are sources available to play this game. I own the discs, and I have a good CD key, so I'm legit. Don't come after me, FBI. But
It's a good
but
game
this
to
is like-
say this about.
like people who know this game like know like how good it is. It has like RPG elements. It's like a sneaky game. You'll see me failing some sneaking. You also see me forget how to use things.
This looks fun. You've done nothing, and this looks fun.
It's like when it gets to the sneaky portions, it'll. This is me not
A
understanding.
Spy in Harm's Way. Yeah, but I think to your point, to the company that writes Hell, I think that's a good point. That there's so many games now where the companies are just defunct.
Yeah.
Which is actually relevant to Folklore. The company that made Folklore is called Game Republic. They made a number of games as not quite, but sort of a first-party Sony studio. And I forget what, they made a couple of games after Folklore, but then they just...
Wasn't there a Folklore 2?
They were going to make a Folklore 2, actually. But Folklore 1 didn't sell well, so even though Sony had basically tentatively greenlit it before the game came out, they then canceled it. We
Was
have
that a
games like
PS3 game? Did they go bust during the PS3 era?
Yeah, they went out of business in 2011.
Wow. That's pretty early, actually. That's like 4 years in the
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't
The
get
game Folklore came out in 2007, so they lasted 4 years.
This is a funny thing. If you search all the way, you'll get funny stuff. Like, you'll get notes, or you'll get, like, use chapstick.
Interesting.
This game is great.
Yeah, I think it's also like a publisher thing, though.
Yeah.
Right? Where, I mean, I don't know who owns Game Republic's assets, but like when
Could be in a closet somewhere.
oh my god, LA Noire, the company that made LA Noire, whose name I'm forgetting, starts with a B, I think. They went out of business, like shortly after releasing LA Noire, because for good reasons.
But Rockstar.
But
owns all that stuff.
Rockstar made sure, or as a publisher, which is a plus and minus to indie developers, definitely. But Rockstar made sure to own basically the resale rights.
Yeah.
And so
and that remaster's out there, and
so
easy to
there's
get. It's on Switch. You know, it's like
Yeah, but like for a lot of these indie games, or not even indie, but smaller studio games, when the company goes out of business, It's like, who owns any of these assets anymore, or even at all?
Yeah.
Is it some random dude, you know?
Some holding company somewhere
Yeah,
that just like bought, I don't know. Yeah, it's so like it's really unfortunate that like that some cool stuff kind of gets just lost in the shuffle because like
yeah,
it's not like movies where people care. There's a fan of every weird movie out there, and like cinema's kind of a respected art, so whatever.
yeah,
The people go out of their way to look at stuff. With games, I feel like that's just starting now, where people are like, "Oh man, No One Lives Forever 2? Like, I'm a 45-year-old person, and I love this game, and I will go to great lengths to make sure it's available to people."
yeah. And
Um,
vegans have always been so much more niche. We're just, and I would say just, we were talking about this earlier, but we started on just secretive.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like,
Those old tech day things of like
yeah.
hide your technology from the.
And I think it's actually really funny talking about that. But the recent no clip about hyperlight breakers, talking about how,
I haven't seen this.
oh, you haven't seen it? They're talking
Tell me
about
what it's
they talk about a build of the game that's never going to be released, and how most people have no idea how many different builds of games there are. But there's so many games out there where there's just like a build or just a full game that nobody knows exists because for reasons.
Yeah.
And I had a
like that Zelda, the 2D before they made Breath of the Wild, they had the 2D version of
yeah.
to test the fire and stuff. Like if they didn't bring that up, no one would know about it, and that's a cool thing.
I mean, I have a friend that works in a number of has worked in a number of game studios, and
Hideo Kojima,
wish
our dear friend.
And what was so interesting to me, we went to visit her studio a few years ago, and they're like, "Yeah, we're making a game, just on an NDA, whatever. We're making a game. We don't have any publisher right now. We plan on releasing it for this system. We have no idea if we're going to be able to. We're making a game, and you can have a full game made,
Yeah,
and nobody's ever going to see it because there's no publisher."
or it's just touch and go until the very end. Like that's what makes the Double Fine documentaries so good. The 2 Player Productions Double Fine documentaries is like pretty much the 2 big games they talk about, Broken Age and then Psychonauts 2 is the other documentary. Like they continue to make the game, and they're like, we don't know who's gonna care about this.
Yeah.
um,
This looks cool.
they want to go to the mall, but she has an assassination, so they can't go to the mall.
So is this game considered better than Deus Ex?
I don't think so. No, it's way more simplistic than Deus Ex. Like certain the RPG elements are like really stripped down. It's definitely like Deus Ex for dummies though, and then there are a couple like branching paths here and there.
So we've spoken about games that have remasters, and good remasters and bad remasters, games that are just ported to new systems, games that are emulated. What about, I guess, sort of what we've sort of been talking about a bit. What about games that never get emulators?
It's really sad. It sucks. Like okay, here's one example that I think about a lot because it's something that I would spend a ridiculous amount of money to get. You know what a Vectrex is?
It sounds familiar, but
So
I wouldn't be able to
Vectrex
play
is a
it.
console. It probably came out in like the 70s or 80s. I don't know. I'm sorry I didn't research that before this video. But the Vectrex is vector graphics, and they have like your typical like Pong shooting kind of games. But the screen is like it's like an analog screen, and it renders these vector graphics in like a really cool kind of drawing light on the screen kind of way that you just can't do. I mean, I think there's probably a Vectrex emulator out there that I just don't know about, but it doesn't look the same. It doesn't look as good as like the actual console does. So like getting a new one of these that works is incredibly expensive, and the same for like a number of arcade cabinets that have like kind of vector graphics, or maybe some of the old Star Wars stuff or like those games that look like there's no point in emulating it even because why would you bother? Like, it's not going to give you
Yeah.
the same effect. And it's not like the games I mean, the games are good, but you can get the same version of that game on a different console, and you're good to go. Um, or even like I guess adjacent to that are games that are just hard to emulate, or systems that are hard to emulate. Um, like a number of arcade systems are very challenging to emulate because you need a special controller, like a ball or like some kind of like a great example, not an arcade thing, but just on the subject of controls is Steel Battalion
Hmm.
on the Xbox, which came with a big old mech controller that you had to
Oh
use
yeah,
to move around. So like
that's
that kind
funny.
of stuff. I
That's
don't
funny.
know.
I was thinking about that recently, actually. A friend of Tommy and I's uh,
Shigeru Miyamoto.
worked on a worked in a game that was just shown at GDC and was also an Indiecade and stuff, called Kitchen Cauldron. And it was made basically as a showcase of experimental controls for games. And like you play the game like you have to go in and it's sort of like an interactive experience where you actually are like doing kitchen stuff and it is controlling the game.
Is it like a VR thing, or is it just like
No, let's call it mixed reality. It is a real world thing and the controls like mimic stuff. And it's really interesting. And it's like because of how games are made now, for the most part, unique controls just aren't possible.
yeah,
You know, I mean, you were saying before we started about Wii games, so dependent on motion controls. If you're gonna use an emulator, you have to figure out, one, do you have a Wiimote for some of these games,
yeah,
and two, will your Wiimote work on a PC, which it should.
yeah.
If you look it up, like that's unique controls. Yeah, are sort of being lost through all of this.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, did you play the Skyward Sword
I did.
remaster on the Switch?
Oh no, on the Switch, no.
So that you can play without a remote.
Mm.
I mean, you can play with the Switch remote, and it's basically just like playing on the Wii. But the version without that is awful. I think it's terrible. They did the best they could.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my thoughts about Skyward Sword anyway.
I do like that Nintendo has, despite ditching the Wii and stuff, has kept the motion controls.
Uh-huh.
So that in theory, if they did release more Wii games onto the Switch, they would be playable.
Yeah. Well, that Wiimote saved their asses when the GameCube almost tanked them. So they're probably like, we're never getting rid of this. We'll always have some version of this.
And I would say the not nearly as extravagant, but the PlayStation controller, PS5 controller, and the like adaptive stuff. It's just amazing.
Oh yeah.
But that's not part of this video.
No, but that's like, that is another like, if we're emulating PS5 games in 50 years and we don't have a PS5 controller, you're gonna miss out on like minor stuff. But having it tense up when you're pulling an arrow in Ghost of Tsushima is like a cool thing.
Yeah.
That shouldn't miss out on if you have that version of the game. What's our next? So we're moving to another
Should we go
game
to Eternal
now.
Sonata?
You pick.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll go here. Why not? What's a good video? Let's do this video because this is the end of the game. So something that's strange about Eternal Sonata.
Well, let's start by saying spoilers for Eternal Sonata.
It's not good. There's no spoilers.
Spoilers for all these games.
The only spoilers are that these are characters that you get in the game that are obvious you're going to get. And this is also
you have 22,000 health.
I do. This is also pretty bad.
Game?
This is also pretty bad gameplay. What is this game? I guess I should mention what the game is about.
So Eternal Sonata. Wait, before we continue, Eternal Sonata, another one of these games that's like, you can play it on PS3 and Xbox, but you can't buy it digitally.
You can't buy it digitally anywhere. It was only, even on PS3 and Xbox, it was disc only. As far as I'm aware, I think it was on disc only. But And one of the things that's crazy about that is the company that made this game, Tri Crescendo, has made a bunch of games, or has co-made a bunch of games that are on like a million systems.
You fucked that guy up, sorry.
Yeah. So like they made Valkyria Profile, which is everywhere, and the sequel's everywhere. Baten
Is there a new
Kaitos.
one that just came out?
Huh?
Valkyria
Yeah.
Profile?
They're mostly co-work on games nowadays, but like they worked on Baten Kaitos,
Which is getting a remaster.
Which is getting a remaster coming out in a couple months. They've worked on a bunch of the Tales games,
which have all been like heavily remastered and re-released on a bunch
and
of
systems. This is like one of their few, if not only, like them made game that hasn't been released like anywhere else. Which is, to me, it's like, but how?
Yeah.
What's going on here? So do you want to know what this game is about?
Yes. No, I'm curious why you think. Because to me, this looks like every other JRPG, and it has. I like the the combat mechanic reminds me of Valkyria Chronicles a little bit. It has like action JRPG.
So this is something I found really cool about this game. Is this entire game is based on what, in theory, could Frederick Chopin, the composer, have been thinking about on his deathbed.
Anime.
Exactly. But so I want to say every character, but every character that you pick up in the game is named for something related to music. And except for one character, who is Chopin himself.
Does he join your party?
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's
what you want out of a video game.
And he is aware that this is his dream. He straight up says like the first.
Is he dying?
Yeah, he's dying.
Aha.
One of the cool things about this game that's never seen done before is the idea of how magic works. Is you only have magic if you are dying. In theory, from tuberculosis, because that's how he died, or essentially what he died of. But one of the things that's really cool is that each chapter of the game is interspersed with history of Chopin. And you get to hear music of his, and each chapter is named for music from him.
If ever there was an anime style JRPG that my my in-laws would play, this is it.
I mean,
they're big fans of Chopin.
I mean, it's pretty. It's
Mahler RPG. Can we make that happen?
Oh yeah. I don't know. It's not amazing. It's kind of it's fun. It's also weirdly co-op. If you want it to be. And
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, you can play with two people. And it is semi. I don't want to say it is and it is not turn-based.
Yeah, I can see it. It's sort of like you can move around freely, I'm guessing, right? And then
so when you start the game, there's like different party levels. And so you have your time thing and your timer, and at the beginning your timer doesn't move unless you do. And then you get basically bonuses and stuff if you choose to have the timer be more active or just start regardless of whether you move or not. And there's really cool combo thing. So when you do combos,
that did 22,000 damage.
Yeah, the higher your thing on the the right, bottom right.
What's this direction here?
The higher that number is when you do your special move, the more damage it does. Yeah, it just seems like, I mean, the Tales games also, God, I haven't played this in years. It's just really interesting.
But what do you think then? Do you think there's any reason why this wasn't like... Because there's a shit ton of JRPGs that get re-released and remastered, sequelized, that I just don't care about. And this looks like one of those.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I have no idea.
It's uniquely not unique, and it probably deserves to be in front of more faces. What do we got? We got beat. We got falsetto.
Oh yeah, all the. Let me go back.
I want to see the character name. The Wheel of Will. Give Will his wheel back. What we got? We got jazz,
Jazz.
march, viola, serenade, falsetto, beat, Frederick. I could get
Who's that?
polka, allegretto, crescendo, and salsa. My name is Salsa.
Yep.
So salsa, some of the, I mean, I get it. It's all music stuff, but something about I feel like salsa, jazz, and beat can go live in their own world, and then
It's weird. I was looking up stuff about this game, and pretty much like one of the weird like through lines for reviews, at least now, is people being like, this game was really average.
yeah,
It was. But for some reason, it's just a game that sticks in your head. And I think it's because there is like a historical nature to it.
yeah. It makes it. It's definitely unique.
There's also some other stuff that
I like
don't
this.
figure-
This is great. I like the way this looks.
There's also like another interesting mechanic, which is there's a light and shadow. So your special move changes depending on whether your character is standing in light or in shadow. And sometimes enemies transform physically into like totally different creatures, depending on that. I don't know.
So really, what you're saying is that this game is it's averageness, but still pretty goodness. Kind of just let it wash away
Yeah, pretty
into
much.
kind of obscurity.
Yeah,
You can surprise attack that. That thing looks cool.
yeah, you can sort of surprise attack. And then, yeah, not an amazing game, but
But interesting. A lot of interesting elements.
and
It's begging for a Kotaku article where
there's
someone's
a lot
like,
of interesting
"This game
elements
changed my
that
life."
like I haven't really seen used in conjunction with each other ever. That weirdly works.
Yeah.
Also, you will love this. The end credits. There's a random, which I don't have. You have this long, like, end cutscene movie, and then at the end, there's a random, just completely nonsensical short, not related to anything related to the game, of like a caterpillar, just a kid-like caterpillar animation.
That's it. It's not like the character becomes a bug or something. It's not like a...
Nope.
Maybe Chopin loved caterpillars.
I'll say as far as like JRPGs are concerned, one of the things that's cool about them, or not cool, that happens in all of them, is
You
you fight
did 80,000 damage.
is you fight God at the end.
Yeah.
Randomly.
Classic.
Or you have in some games, one of your party members is unaware that they are God or is actually the big bad.
Love it.
And I think the thing that this does that sort of changes the entire formula, kind of, is that your character Frederick just knows he is God.
And he's cool. He's not weird about it.
Yeah, he's also like, I'm God, but stuff isn't working the way stuff still surprises him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not in control of everything, probably because he's dying. But I don't know. It's a fun game. I weirdly think about it all the time.
Is this your Freedom Fighters or one of your Freedom Fighters? Because it ticks box one, which is no one gives a shit about it except you.
Yeah, probably. It was also I think the first game Tommy and I played together.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Because it is co-op.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's 3 people, but the co-op person can be playing the other person in one of the people in the party in the fight. Which there is a strategy-ish to it because everyone shares the same item pool in the fight.
You guys just
Yeah.
switch off if you're playing co-op, or do you?
No, you're playing co-op. There's 2 controllers.
Yeah, but in terms of like, 'cause there's 3 characters in the.
Oh
party.
yeah. I forget how it is, but yeah, one of the people plays as one of them.
Hey, that's an innovation. Just change your party members on the fly. That wasn't always a thing in JRPGs.
It wasn't always a thing. In
Looking at you,
JRPGs.
Final Fantasy VII. Hey, call him on your PH.
This game is also weirdly easy and difficult. It is easy if you would kill everything. It is not if you don't.
Like grinding?
Grinding is built into the game. So if you go after a boss and you haven't killed everything before the boss, you will probably not do well.
I guess that's cool in a way. You know, you could also have no grinding.
You could have no grinding.
And have the world just level up with you. And have the true battle be on the card board.
True.
Card deck board. A deck board.
Yeah.
What would you call that?
Cardboard deck?
You'd have 3 threes. A triple triad of sorts.
Yeah. That's that game.
Eternal Sonata.
It's Eternal Sonata.
So you've brought us another treat.
Another treat.
Which is a game I'm actually extremely curious about. I've never seen it in action before.
It is a weird game.
I've only seen this game on your like TV stand at your parents' house many years ago, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" It was right next to Demon Souls.
This is a weird game.
Folklore.
So yeah, the company that made this game went out of business.
Rip.
I don't know if anybody knows who owns the rights to this. It is like impossible to find anything anywhere about it. It is more obscure than Eternal Sonata.
I've never seen a copy of this game in like Game Dude or
in the
like,
wild
Game Shop. Yeah.
It is.
It was a launch title, right, or close to
It was close. It was close to launch. It actually came out. I found out the same month as Eternal Sonata.
Wow. Something happened to you that month. Some like lightning
Yeah,
struck
right?
you, and you're like, "Oh, whatever 2 games I see next are going to be my favorite games of all time."
But this game is. It's a really sort of weird introspective game. You actually play as 2 people.
Folk and Clore.
Yes. Actually, there's a lot of things about this that were done. I mean, in a million games, but in Birth by Sleep, where you play as you play as Ellen, and Keats. Ellen is a girl looking to find her mother and find out about her past.
Is Keats a poet? The real Keats?
Keats, no. Well, he's an occult reporter.
Okay.
Both of them get brought to this island. Keats trying to get a story, and Ellen trying to find her mom or stuff about her mom or about her past. And you play as both of them.
That's cool.
And you can choose to play as them, like on and off, which is how I have played it. You play as Ellen one chat like for the prologue, and then you go and you play Keats, or you can just play as.
Is it the same level no matter who you play?
So, yes and no. There are some differences.
Like a Claire and Leon situation.
Yeah.
Back to RE2.
There are some differences. One of the things also is that it's also similar to Pokemon. Kind of, you are collecting. You're fighting folks.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically just this game's version of like demons, and you absorb them and absorb their power. And you can basically use them to fight for you.
That's cool.
And because
that reminds me of acclaimed JRPG Person A.
Yeah. Because of the differences in who they are and what they can do, and what time they go to places, they might run into different folks.
Oh, that's cool.
So, Keats uses the folks that Keats gets, he uses drastically differently in most cases than Ellen does. And there's some that only he can find.
Can you swap on the fly?
Yeah.
So it's not crazy to collect them all.
No, yeah,
There's no trophies though, so who cares?
Yes, which I was thinking. Like, there's a bunch of games I feel like Eternal Sonata and Folklore and a million others. I would say almost Uncharted, but Uncharted came out.
It was like on the cusp. Valkyria Chronicles 1.
Uncharted pissed me off.
Yeah. They patched it in later, right?
I was literally playing Uncharted. The last day I was playing, they patched in trophies, and it wasn't like set yet, and so none of the things that would have been trophies that I would have gotten, I got because I didn't get them within the 10 minutes of the game
You
I
would
was
have just
playing.
gotten like the end or whatever, like the one trophy that you got.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a interesting game. The writing it's okay. But you get like a pretty realistic, I mean, this is even for PS3, a pretty realistic-ish version of just a town that you kind of walk through, and it's all
cool. Like
it's
a
all
hub?
yeah, it's all super depressing. But there's people in the town, and you just sort of talk to them, and you find mementos that let you go into different netherworld realms, or different realms to find out what the fuck's going on. And actually, to this day, probably the best use of because it was the 6-axis then, of the 6-axis controller.
Without rumble at this point.
Yes. But you use it to absorb folks.
What's the motion that you do?
It depends. The main one is just lift the controller up. One stronger ones will try to prevent you from taking their bodies.
Do you
taking their souls.
Do you need to do that? Is that like a...
Yeah.
All right, because just back to I'm thinking about our like weird controls discussion a little earlier.
Yeah, right.
Maybe that's why this game never got ported.
Probably. Let me skip ahead.
It's called Doolin?
Yes, the town of Doolin.
That's cute.
This is the thing that made the game basically get shit on. Most of the cutscenes are done in like a graphic design style. Or let me go back.
They're kind of like still.
So like it goes between this, like FMVs type thing, and
this
where it's like composed, sort of like you're reading a graphic novel and it's panning, kind of actually like Metal Gear Acid.
Yeah, I don't mind this. This is fine.
People hated this.
The Night of Samhain.
Except for Famitsu, which gave this game a 33 out of 40.
Wow. Remember when we gave a shit about Famitsu? Talking about game preservation. How about those dinosaurs? Am I right? So do you think this game isn't on? Do you think this is a right tell? We'll put this in the right tell category of games.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's a bummer. That sucks.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of rights hell and it was just so obscure.
Yeah, probably didn't sell a whole lot.
Yeah.
Probably same for Eternal Sonata.
It's actually weird. It as far as like reviews are concerned, when it came out, it got like mostly 7s, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really early PS3 title. And yet I guess people were playing that weird Transformers game.
Well, yeah, what else was out at the time? What were the PS3 launch titles?
Okay,
I'm going to look it up right now. Intern's going to look it up. Boy, yeah, Folklore is among some good company here. Heavenly Sword. Remember that game?
Yep.
Lair. Remember Lair?
Yep.
Warhawk.
Yep.
Resistance Fall of Man.
The only one that did well.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, B, to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on how you will preserve video games in your life? Are you going to start collecting physical games? Are you going to emulate more legally, of course?
I'm honestly not sure. I feel like we're in a time.
You want to?
Yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to just be able to keep games, but like moving has makes keeping things difficult, especially when you're a kid.
Yeah. Every move I've lost like some portion of my collection.
But I feel like the thing that makes it difficult for me is similar to the issue with, say, like my N64. I want to be able to keep the system and be able to play it. But I feel like it's gotten to a point where there's just a weird difficultness to it. So part of me is like, well, if I play just more PC games, then it'll be easier. I won't have as much to worry about. But there's also do you like having physical editions?
Yeah.
The part of me is always like, okay, what if Steam or what if Valve goes out of business? What happens to all that?
They've said on a few occasions that there's just like a big ass button they pull if Steam ever dies, just be like, everything that's ever been will continue to be, but there's nothing new. Store is dead.
Sure, but like
I
eventually,
don't trust them.
But eventually that ends, right?
Right.
I mean, like Final Fantasy 11.
Well, eventually it becomes the 3DS shop closure where you have to just buy everything
Right.
or lose it.
Like, I think it was this week. Final Fantasy 11 officially went into maintenance mode.
Oh yeah, I thought I misread that. I was like, Final Fantasy 11.
No, people have been playing it this whole
Isn't that
time.
when we were in high school?
But like, it reminds me of like, in Dark Souls, or not Dark Souls, Demon Souls, when the original Demon Souls servers were being shut down,
And
people
bled for that.
kept them alive.
Yeah.
Like, but for most people, that's not a thing.
Well, that's a whole other aspect of this conversation that I think you and I probably, because we don't play a lot of online games.
I used to play a lot more.
Yeah, but that's a whole other thing. Is like, yeah, having a server, people running Counter-Strike 1.6 servers, or people, I mean, yeah, keeping up like old like the Demon Soul stuff, keeping that alive. Like, that's like way more investment than I would ever be willing to put in. But I'm glad people are doing it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like we're also at a really interesting time when it just has become much easier
Yeah.
to preserve stuff. I was really surprised when, I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago, they announced that Ni no Kuni 2 was officially coming to Xbox One.
Really?
Yeah.
They just announced that?
They just announced. No, they just launched it.
Oh, is it like a Game Pass thing?
I know it was like an official. They released Ni no Kuni 1 a couple years ago, or then they
2?
released Ni no Kuni 2. It's weird. Yeah, I know it's weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Those are the announcements that are not for me in
yeah.
the direct style presentation where they're like, and Yakuza 7 coming to all consoles, and I'm like,
Right.
great, I already played it, but I'm glad it's happening.
I don't know.
This is very nice.
I feel like, at least for me, it's always felt like sort of an uphill battle. And I've never really felt capable of strategizing around it. What I'm gonna do.
Like how to buy, how to store, how to...
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
So my gut instinct, right? Like fans of No Technical Difficulties might be aware because you're in my family or my close friends. I recently bought a home, and the first thing that crossed my mind is like, I want to buy records again, I want to buy CDs again, and I want to buy games again. I want to like go the game dude and like preserve my games and have a collection. And like, I have a very, very small physical game collection now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something very comforting about it to me, where I'm like, yeah, like for instance with the 3DS eShop closure, like I just have a copy of like all the old Castlevania games on DS. I have a copy of like Golden Sun Dark Dawn on the DS, which I've never played, but I have a copy of it because one day I will play it.
Yeah.
I have Game Boy Advance SPs that are sort of like just laying around. And I like that because I know that like, okay, as long as I change the battery, keep it maintained well or whatever, it's gonna continue to work because those are well made pieces of hardware. But I also just know that, yeah, one more move, we're one kid, we're one move, we're one weird thing away from like, hey, we can't keep this shit in the garage anymore, it's gotta go.
Yeah.
And I also take a lot of comfort when I can do something like download Majesty on GOG, or like another game that I really want to play for this channel one day is the Saboteur.
That game looked so cool when it was coming out.
That game is cool. But just like being able to just be like, hey, I got this itch, or like another one that a bad put it up on the store version of the game, or like the Legacy of Kain games, where
Mm-hmm.
like those games to me are like comfort food in a weird way because I've never played them, but I've always watched them played and admired them from afar.
Mm.
And now those versions are terrible, so there's no reason to get them. But I know just from scuttlebutt and from following video games that one day a version of those games, be it a remaster or a working posted up on Steam GOG version, will come out because people are clamoring for it,
Yeah.
and it's just possible. It's just possible. So like, why would I go and try to get a PS2 or a Dreamcast or whatever and play those games when I can just download them? So I guess a long-winded way of saying a combination of both, but definitely for the very precious things, for the games that I know I'm gonna want to play over and over again and keep, like I'll try to have physical versions when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, sadly, that's really not possible anymore for PC games. But yeah, I would like to at least have a nice core collection by the time this is all over. By the time I'm dead, have a nice core collection of like physical games that mean a lot to me.
We haven't spoken. I know we're near the end, but we haven't really spoken about just hardware
Yeah,
going obsolete.
yeah,
Now we've spoken about controllers, but I mean not obsolete, just dying.
yeah. Just not being not. So okay, I agree with you. I agree that like for instance, Xbox is trying really hard to just put Game Pass on TVs. Don't even need to buy an Xbox anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. And I think that's why I so strongly covet the handheld. Like I have a Steam Deck. I just love it. Or like, yeah, I have two Game Boy Advance SPs. I have my 3DS. I have my Switch. Like, because to me, that's like the last bastion of like the hardware matters. Is like I can play it on my couch. It's like a nice little portable thing. But yeah, I would not be surprised if when we're older, you know, when our children are playing video games or our children's children or whatever that generation is, that it's just going to be the Uber box and that's it. You know, which I guess is a PC at the end of the day, but
like, what do you do? Like, what do you do when the hardware, when like just the chip that makes the Game Boy Advance work just shorts?
Yeah, you go to the good old PC emulator. You go to your last resort, or you hope to God that Nintendo is like re-releasing these games and putting them up. Yes, they're gonna sell it to you again, but like if it's a game that means a lot to you, like I would pay extra again for a game that means a lot to me. But that really sucks, and that's again why I'm so attached to PC gaming, because my 5 previous computers did all die, and I can still play almost all the game. In fact, all like No One Lives Forever, a game I haven't played since it came out. I just
booted it up.
I just booted it up and it worked. I mean, I had a little fiddling here and there. Shoutouts to the Unity HQ fan servers that are still, or the fan site that's still going. But it's doable. It's possible.
Yeah.
And that's much scarier for PlayStation games and Nintendo games for sure. So that's a sad way to end this, but please put Golden Sun on the Switch. That's what I'm.
My hope is that, at the very least, there are like museums. They keep stuff going. Before we started, I was thinking about the Foundation books and how, for anyone that doesn't know, premise of Foundation is that this giant galactic space empire is about to be ending, and so to preserve knowledge, all information is being recorded and saved everywhere and whatever. It occurred to me that when discussions of that sort of thing happen, video games are never discussed.
Yeah.
As a medium,
they're toys. Who cares?
That is considered an aspect of human knowledge, or the experience that we've created. Like, that's sad.
Yeah.
And
the attitude might be changing as like our generation becomes the old men and women of the
true,
of the world. You know, I think that's definitely changing, but you're right. I think it's a long way. Like, no one's gonna be like, oh, you know what really defined the '90s? Half-Life and Deus Ex.
I mean, especially since they came out into 2000s.
Yeah. Well, Deus Ex came out in '99, right? Or 2000?
Oh,
Half-Life came out in like '98.
But
they feel futuristic, is what you're saying.
They do feel futuristic. Yeah. I hope that at the end of the day, stuff gets preserved somewhere.
Yeah. Good people are out there doing work. Donate to your local
To your local video game,
your local pop culture museums, your local video game museums,
your local video game congressperson.
Yeah. Ash Ketchum 2024. Well, that's it on the topic of game preservation. I'm glad we had this discussion because got to see some footage of some cool games. Got to play some cool games. Got to play one shitty game and be reminded of my disappointment.
All right.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Leave the comments below on games you love that you can't get anymore.
And we'll tell you if you can. Dun, dun,
With
dun.
the offer code BD. Goodbye,
Adios.
everyone.